I welcome you back to St Eugene's Cathedral Hall here in Derry for our podcast on the Gospel of the second Sunday in our Lenten journey 2022, year C of the liturgical cycle, where we have a 3-year cycle of scripture readings for each Sunday in the year. Last week, on the first Sunday of Lent, we looked at the temptations of Jesus, and that forms part of a personal story for Jesus. He discovers his mission has to begin as the one who will suffer to take away the sins of the world, and he's tempted to be unfaithful to that mission, just as people who start Lent with good intentions can very often waver as the time goes on and lose a little bit of concentration on all the things they plan to do. Now we have the second Sunday of Lent, and the focus is on the transfiguration of Jesus. Why? In Luke's Gospel, as in Matthew and Mark, just before Jesus is transfigured and Moses and Elijah appear with him, just before that happens, he tells them that he will suffer and die and be raised. He's talking about him taking up the cross and then taking up the cross. And now we have in the transfiguration, Jesus being revealed in his glory, a glimpse for Peter, James and John of who he is, a glimpse that will sustain them through the horrors of rejection and the awful things that happen on Good Friday, that they can still keep going even if everything seems lost, and look forward to resurrection. And similarly for ourselves, as we move on our faith journey, we all need things that will nourish us. We all need glimpses of God's glory. We all need signs of hope. We all need things that will sustain us, because life is difficult. Taking up the cross is part of being human. It's part of the pain of being human. And with me today to talk about something that comes from the gospel of this second Sunday of Lent is Emmett Mullan, a young married man with 2 children, 2 small children, and all the joys and challenges that brings for you and your wife. So I want you to reflect with you, to give us some of your insights into what sustains young people on their faith journey. Let's begin with yourself, if you don't mind. I mean, you're a young man, mid-20s, married with 2 children, working in the context of church, in an age when most of your contemporaries are not churchgoers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What sort of things have sustained you, or what gives you courage to face the future with trust in God rather than saying, the hell with a whole lot?
Yeah.
What sort of experiences have you had growing up, can I ask?
For me, it was mainly role models and family and parents, grandparents, schools. Went to St Anne's, St Colum's College, and the cathedral, local parish, and priests. So it was a mixture, I think, of whole range of different people that had input, positive input on faith.
And what did you see in them? What do you remember about your grandparents or your family or teachers in school, or any particular things stand out as they behaved?
I think mainly closest to home, parents and grandparents, and just how they loved. And obviously everybody looks up to their parents and grandparents, so in everything they done, and they had a strong faith and passed that on to us through thickness to mass. And now, as having 2 children, I know how difficult that can be. It can be getting ready at 4 o'clock just to make 6 o'clock mass and still not on time. But so appreciating the work that they put in, they take us to mass and pray in the house and have a positive influence that stuck with me as I grew up. And I think life when you're younger is a lot easier in the sense that you're more naive and everything seems, you don't think there's much badness in the world or struggles, but as you get older you realise, and even through other people's experience, that things are tough. And obviously some people have very difficult circumstances, but normal life for a lot of people can be just tough day to day, and you need something to sustain you. And for me and for my wife now, it's faith, and our faith together and with God to continue every day.
And looking back, I suppose inevitably your grandparents and your parents, life wasn't a bed of roses for them, I imagine, either.
No, I would say that's probably what built the strong faith for them, is in Derry a lot of years ago you had the Troubles, and obviously times were tougher, so they needed that faith as well. They stay strong and like have a strong family sense of family and like keep it together.
So family and belonging is important in helping people to face the future as well.
Yeah, I think so. I suppose
loneliness probably is a challenge for many people, whether they be young or old.
Yeah, I feel blessed to say that I had a family that were so supportive, and even now we're a very close family, and there's obviously people who don't have that, and I think that could be a struggle, and maybe a sense of find difficulty to believe in God or a faith when you're lonely and when you don't have that support. So.
Yeah. Have you any memories of how your parents or your grandparents experienced the Troubles? Because those 30 years of bombings and shootings and death and curfews and sirens, it must have been difficult for people living in an urban area.
Yeah,
like Derry.
Obviously, it's like I was born in '95, so it was kind of phasing out then. I grew up obviously when everything was peaceful, but for my parents and grandparents, obviously, it's hard to fathom it when you've never experienced it. But like it was, as you say, shooting, bombing, and now that you see in the news every day what's happening in Ukraine, you still can't. You have to really think about it. And the other day I was really thinking about it, like if this was here, that would basically be my wife and children have to leave and you'd have to stay and fight, and like that realness you think, because it's so far away, that I don't know, it's hard to sort of, but they're just normal people. They work normal jobs, that it's not, they're like us, and just I suppose here was probably the same, that they didn't have a choice. They had to fight obviously, but it's just hard to fathom when you're so far away from it.
Yeah, I suppose I'm new to Derry, 8 years here in the city, but I have the impression that throughout all the Troubles, parishes, church played a significant role in the lives of many people in terms of providing stability. Have you heard any stories at all about the past, or
not
so
much?
It was important for your parents and grandparents.
Yeah, I think like it was a safe place, obviously the church, and it was like even now, like the same people are there every day, 10 a.m. mass, and the community of the parish, that there's a real sense of strength there, that people helping out and people just dedicated to the church and providing back to the church, because I'm sure they got a lot of hope and sense of security through their faith in the church through those tough times.
I know you're very much involved in the life of the parish, but there is a huge range of volunteers, of people who generously give of their time, including one young woman who's got Down syndrome, who really is a very passionate worker here in the parish.
Frida, Frida, she's there every Friday doing the ropes and spraying down the church, so she's been brilliant. So she's watching this. Thank you, Breda.
There's been a lot of goodness has come out even during lockdown in terms of people volunteering in parish. It's
incredible how willing people are with their time. Everyone has busy lives, everyone has things going on, and there's people over there just day in, day out that are just giving their time, and like it wouldn't happen. The church wouldn't run without the volunteers, so it's incredible what they give.
Yes, from a welcome at the start when people come in and helping them to get the seats, to clearing up afterwards. I suppose all of that.
Yeah, the whole everything from the sacristans, cleaners, you name it. Everyone's just chipping in, doing their bit, and like you see how nice the cathedral is, how clean it is, how well things are run. That's all mainly due to the volunteers.
And I have a sense you're saying there's a good community atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. It's good crack. There's good sense of community within the parish, and I think now that it's opened up more, it's come back more and more. Obviously with the lockdowns and the church being closed, I think people sort of have maybe not fallen away, but they just couldn't physically get there. But now that it's opened up, there's definitely, you see people coming back and things going back to normal, which is great.
I mean, I saw for Ash Wednesday when I came out just 10 days or so ago, I really was touched seeing a big crowd of people who all wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I think belonging, being in community, feeling welcomed, feeling that you belong there, actually is an important experience for people to help them cope.
Like every day at the 10 Mass, it's crowded, and there was a guy that was doing some work here in the hall. He's from Dundalk, and I was coming to meet him to show him the hall, and he was pulled up and said, "What's going on here?" It was 10 to 10. He says, "What? How many cars?" I said, 10 Mass. He says, "What?" He says, "How many people come to Mass in there?" But so there's definitely a good, strong turnout for Masses, and it's getting better and better as we open up more.
Good. Yeah, so you mentioned family and that experience of prayer at home, of good example from parents and grandparents and that sense of the family. You've mentioned parish as well as being an important place where people can feel at home and have these regular points during their day or during their week. I always go to 9:30 Mass on a Sunday, or I always see the same people at 10 o'clock in the morning, and so, all those sorts of things. For young people, what sort of events, have you any idea, what sort of events help them? We talk about pilgrimages and taking young people away, and Camino and Loch Derg and Knock and Lourdes and so on, and Medjugorje and World Youth Day. Have you picked up any sense from people about how important for young people those events might be?
Yeah, I think they're extremely important, because when you hear them coming back, or hear what they have to say when they come back from those trips, and when you hear what other people, like leaders and teachers or whatever, that go on the trips say about the young people when they're away, it's just amazing. I think the main thing is trying to not convince them, but show them that this is something that they will enjoy and they'll get a lot from, by giving. Like, for example, you hear teachers saying about young people pushing people in wheelchairs and Lourdes, and the things that they do and willingness to help is what they really take from it. But I think it's like, I was talking with a group of the Pope John Paul Award students yesterday, and I was asking them that sort of thing, like what is it that you want, or what would be good for you to get involved more and develop your faith. And a lot of them were just sort of saying we think it would be boring, but that's just because they haven't experienced that yet, those sort of retreats or pilgrimages. But you just hear great things from when they do come back from those trips. And for us here in the parish, I think that starts from when they're really young, the likes of the children's liturgy. So primary 1 to primary 4, you're starting there and developing. They mightn't be in the same class, different schools, but when they come on the Sunday to the Mother Teresa Chapel, they're friends and they're getting along, and then they know each other outside of things. So it's building them relationships from when they're young, and then that leads on the faith camp in the summer, the 3-week summer camp. Again, it's 3 weeks of fun, but there's a strong faith element there and prayer, and again that's helping them to plant that seed and develop their faith for later in life. That then leads in the Pope John Paul Award, and hopefully you can keep them within the church for the likes of the pilgrimages, and then working or helping out here in the parish.
Yes, it's providing a sense of belonging, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
Providing some content, so it touches their heart in terms of experiencing it, but also gives them something in terms of the content of faith. And service, you suggest, seems to be an important element for young people in terms of how they experience faith.
I think in today's world it's about what can I get, or what can benefit me for exam results or a career or university or whatever, but you do find happiness in service and giving and helping others, and it's definitely a lot more rewarding if we can just give them those opportunities to do that.
And that creates memories.
Yeah, and I think it makes you think more, and certainly for myself, when you're younger, you don't think a lot about those things, but when you get a bit older, you think more about how you can help others and the importance of things. And I think when you're at school, everything's focused on exams and yourself, and the bigger picture is what you can do for others. And I think that's what we need to share with the young people, that's the bigger picture.
That's how you change the world, is by giving rather than by getting.
Yeah.
I know the Pope John Paul II Awards can offer all sorts of opportunities for being involved in your parish, sometimes doing ordinary things, sometimes doing extraordinary things. And I know for a few years there was a sleep out here in the cathedral.
Yeah, yeah.
In solidarity with those who were homeless.
Like stuff like that. That was run by the Catechetical Centre, the youth team there. So I think that was Lizzie and Podrick at the time, maybe. But that stuff like that's given them an opportunity to do things that are different and that make a difference. Like they slept out all night in the cold and stayed up and done prayer and different activities to show their solidarity with homelessness. So it's giving them those opportunities that they'll remember and can build upon.
Yeah, so it's creating memories of what it must be like to be sleeping on the street or sleeping in a hostel.
Yeah.
I know recently I was out in confirmation in one of our parishes and was very impressed by how well the young teacher had the children prepared for everything. And then afterwards she was saying to me, by the way, I've met you before. I was allured for 5 Easters with the Irish Pilgrimage Trust. You know,
very good.
And those things can leave indelible impressions on people's minds.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the important things that we need to provide as a parish. I think that is going to leave those lasting memories for young people to carry with them, and they later in life that they can then use to help other young people and keep the cycle going.
So you've mentioned belonging, being with others, growing in faith together, as the gift programme suggests through those 4 letters, growing in faith together. Because fellas fancy girls and girls fancy fellas, and people enjoy being with their friends, and there can be an element of hormones as well as holiness in all of this growing in faith together. So there's that experience. There's also the sense of being able to learn through service and grow as a human being and discover I'm fit to do great things here rather than I've just got to look after myself. For the apostles at the Transfiguration, it was very much a glimpse of the glory of Jesus. Getting young people involved in prayer probably isn't all that easy.
No, I don't think so. I would say the two things I would say if you asked them, just from my experience, is that they would find it either boring or they don't have the interest. But again, it's just trying to get it in the right way, that across to them, the importance of it and the need for it. Because as you say, the apostles on the hill, they got a glimpse of God's glory, and you get that throughout your life. But if you don't recognise that, it's going to pass by. Whereas if you can have gratitude for the things that you have, for example, us now sitting in peace and not in a war country, you just have to be completely grateful for that when you take a moment to think about it, because it's terrible what's happening obviously in Ukraine, but so it's just trying to recognise the glimpses of God's glory in your life and throughout the world, and it gives you a greater sense of appreciation.
And those can become as complete surprises.
Definitely, yeah.
And obviously, you know from your own experience of falling in love and growing in love, that there are experiences private to yourselves that really sustain you, even when 3 o'clock in the morning with 2 crying babies or something.
Definitely. I think anything that's happened to me in my life that's been great is being unplanned by me. It wasn't my thing I set out to do. It just, I met Emma Jo, we fell in love and got married, and it's been great. And something like that, just being grateful for saying like you found someone that you love and love spending every day with is amazing. Having 2 children, 3 in the morning, it's not great, but again, a glimpse of God's glory when they say something or smile or do something, or it makes it all worth it. So there's definitely God's glory in everyday life, and you just have to look for it and appreciate it when you see it.
Okay, we're sort of coming to the end of this conversation about transfiguration and how faith can be fed by little glimpses. With your two children who are still very small, what would you be hoping to offer, you as a couple, you as a family? What would you be hoping to offer them as they grow up? What have you learned from your own parents and grandparents of what you would love to be for them, so that they will have the belief in a God who believes in people, that they will have that sense of being loved and being able to love, that sense of having hope for the future even when things seem dark? Well, what sort of ways do you hope to be able to gift your children with the courage for the journey, just as Jesus did with the apostles?
I think providing the example is the main thing, and like even as I said earlier, as tough as it is to get them out to Mass, we'll get them to Mass every Saturday, even at a young age. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of what other people might think in the church because your baby's crying, or my boys run trying to giving off to people for taking the ropes off the seats or something. But you just like getting them used to it from a young age of being in the church, and at home prayer time, and like each evening and morning we're saying prayers with them and including them and asking them who do they want to pray for. And I think the other day it was his toy truck he wanted to pray for, but it's just getting them into that example, and because it's amazing how they pick up an example, bad and good. So we have to be careful with the bad examples you set and just try and encourage the good example, and just trying to lead them as best as we can. Like I'm been a parent for just over 2 years. I don't know what to do. I don't claim to know what to do, but I think if you lead with love and just love them, and when it's true love coming from the right place, that it's going to be as best as you can do. So that's our goal, I think, to guide them.
And them having trust in the adults in their lives. Mummy and daddy and grandas and so on.
That's the same. We're lucky as well that our children have great grandparents that have strong faith, and same thing, they'll guide them in that and teach them in prayer and faith as well. So it's just they're going to look up to us and their grandparents and their great grandparents. So they will, like, children love their parents and are enthralled with them. So if you teach them those things, then hopefully it'll help them later in life to build upon.
And by the sound of the things, I mean, your children are blessed in many ways. And that there are so many children, so many young people out there who don't have that stability or that sense of being loved, or that hope for the future, or that confidence that the world is in the hands of God. And it'll be a big responsibility on those who have the experience of Jesus, like the apostles Peter, James and John, to be able to share that insight with those who doubt that the world is beautiful, and that there is love and forgiveness and hope.
Definitely. There's going to be young children out there that are going to grow up with no sense of faith in the house or God not talked about, and as you say, it's up to the people that have built a strong faith from a young age that are going to be able to help them in the likes of their parish and hopefully the schools, and that's what we have to hope that we can get through to them that way and develop them from there.
Yeah, you have the poster of synodality behind you. I have one here as well, where the themes for the synod of bishops, but also for the synod in the Irish Church, is communion, participation and mission. And I suppose in many ways what I'm hearing you saying, Emmett, is that we're looking to create parish families where there is a sense of belonging. And that begins with the experience of belonging in family, communion, participation. People are able to take responsibility for making decisions, and as your children grow up, they get more responsibility and are asked to do things. All so that the church can have communities that are going out on mission to bring hope and love and forgiveness and mercy to people.
And that's obviously what the synod's about. It's getting people's opinion. What can the church do for families in the parish, like with the young children? Like what, maybe there's different things we can do. Obviously Mass is the centre of our faith, but is there more community-based things and groups and different things that'll make the community stronger, the parish community stronger? So that's, hopefully we'll get some answers out of the synod for what the church can do for the community as a whole.
And how people can have those glimpses of God's glory, even on a dark day, even on the top of a mountain, how they can have a glimpse of God's glory that will sustain them to join Jesus, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world, because that is the mission.
Yeah.
It's how do we take away the pain of the world, the sin of the world, the division of the world, the despair of the world, all of those things. And we are blessed people. You're sharing some of the blessings that you have.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you very much for sharing your own personal journey at this stage. You're still a young man, 27 this year.
27 past.
27 past.
I was laughing to start. You said I was mid-20s. I said that to my wife already. She says, you're late 20s now. I was like, oh, I suppose.
But thank you very much for sharing your own journey and how the Lenten journey actually can help us reflect on where we are as a church, the challenges to being church, the challenge that Jesus puts in front of us to be people who bring good news to the world, and how he blesses people in all sorts of ways in order to bring that sense of God's glory. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. Personal experience of God, the glimpses of God, hoping to give hope to young people growing up in a difficult environment with a war at the present time not too far away from us in Central Europe. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you can join us next week as we reflect on the Gospel of the third Sunday of Lent, again with one of our wonderful young people here who seek to build church fit for purpose in Jesus' name in the 21st century. Thank you. God bless you.